it's hope and honor after loss, how to readjust. And as we know, everyone's going through the crisis, so everyone's facing it. And what happened initially is we were all sort of like a forced savings. We went into a forced change where, we're expecting ourselves to be able to live in a world that's our world, but we're learning a new language. So it's been a challenge for everyone and just working together. And then we started to lose people. So that's when I started to develop this. Just a little bit information about me. 19 years ago, I worked in New Jersey, developed the day programs there. Prior to that, I was the day program director in Connecticut. So I got to see the differences between the states and, very much committed, love CFS. And I had leave and I became a therapist. So in order to get my license, I had to do some hours in Connecticut, which I ended up staying for like 17 years. And then I just recently came back and I'm in New York City. So what was interesting was when I was making the transition from CFS to the private practice where we had like 6 psychiatrists, 20 therapists, 9/11 hit that day when I was supposed to come into the city for the Tuesday meeting. But instead, I was seeing patients and the devastation, obviously, everybody was touched. There was at least, one person that knew of someone, and you just started to see, the PTSD that started, the kids, how did people present it to kids when they were coming home? They were hysterical. So at that point, then I continued in with the private practice. And the other devastation that I experienced, so as I'm going through this, it's not like I'm reading something. I created this because I lived through this and was able to help people. Our practice was right next to Sandy Hook. So I had done, some work with the councils there as well. A lot of my people were teachers, parents, and when I look at the reactions to loss, everything is absolutely the same. I had some people that would call me 20 minutes after they left the school and they were numb. So they had no idea. Your brain just goes into this denial. Sometimes people think denial is something that, just we do ourselves, but it really isn't. It's a protection. And I had, a couple of people, when am I going to get back into that school? How come they're not letting me in? Can you just, give me can you tell me what's going on? They had just run from the school, ran somewhere for shelter and left. And I just, how do you handle something like that? You sort of go by instinct. And the first thing I did was I said, why don't you wait for your husband? Just don't look at the TV right now. And I was able to keep her away from that for over a week because she couldn't handle that. Her brain needed to stay in that mode. And I think, having that experience and looking what we're going through right now, people became numb. We all, sort of stopped what's happening, and everyone became very focused on the news and moment by moment. And that's back then I encouraged people to stay away from it. And right now as well. I know myself, if I sit there one day and watch it, I have a whole different mindset. And it's important, I think, for everyone, for staff, individuals, all of us to avoid that. Catch up. It's not like you want to stay in the stage of not knowing. I listen to that 1080 a couple of times a day. It's a minute. It sums up everything. Because if you keep listening, whatever is underlying, whether it's anxiety, depression, it's very easy to fall back into that right now. So in all the reactions to loss, people are getting tired. They are angry. They're confused. They're scared. The interesting thing is that we're all survivors. We find a way to get through it. And it's not comfortable. I mean, look how long it took for people to stay home. So it's limits. And, New Yorkers are used to walking. Big difference between New York, Jersey, Connecticut. People don't realize in New York, you're walking about 7 miles a day for the most part. You're going on subways, you're going upstairs. So that's a natural serotonin booster. All of a sudden, you stop doing it, and then, all the symptoms are coming up. So what I've discovered and, staying in contact and talking with my guys that are working and everyone else, the need to express. So we have dance groups. We have groups where people are singing, writing. We're doing a lot right now to be able to offer a menu to everyone and the need to connect. And how can you express? For those that just sort of sit and internalize, they're fueling all of the anxiety. And so we encourage, we have different chat support, and that's the key. It's the key for all of us. If you stay in, home the entire day and without getting out, what I find is that, and if you have a pre-existing condition of anxiety, you can become agoraphobic, because especially with what's going on right now too. So the expression is key for everyone. The stages of grief, very similar as the stages of loss. I think that when people have information and they understand what they're going through, they can label it. So, the denial, you just avoid things. Interesting story for me is I was in denial. I love New York City. I love every aspect of it. And I don't know, maybe it was like March 18th or something. I took the 4 train over to the Barclay Center. I was the only one. I walked out of the Barclay Center. I was the one person. I snapped into reality. I said, this is real. And I see a lot of people that still don't quite get that. They hear the word virus, they hear what's happening, but until something personally happens to them, they don't really look at it or face it. That's why, again, they had to, continue to place more and more rules on it. It's like you're on the outside looking in. And then people get angry. They're snapping, any leftover anger, and what I've seen with people, anything. Now is the time when you're going through the loss and the grief that it comes out. So, with our individuals, you may see them, getting more angry. They're not walking. They're, limited with exercise. And so we're having exercise groups that we think, and I think everybody should have that. There's a level of bargaining. If I pray more, if I do this, make it stop. They said April 7th. Why isn't it happening? Can I, what can I do? I'll go back to work. I'll do whatever it takes. And unfortunately, people can fall in and out of depression. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Connection is key right now. So what I'm finding that's really nice is there is a lot more communication on the phone, having conversations versus texting. I know myself, if I'm texting somebody, I might misinterpret what they're saying. And everybody is used to that. So again, we're forced to talk because we need to connect. When you lose somebody, you do eventually come to acceptance. But people go in and out of all these stages. And that's why I think it's key to have as much emotional support, because then you can spell it out and you can work through it. So one of the main things in everywhere that when people have gone through a loss, you try to say every negative has a positive. How do you tell a parent that lost 2 of their children in a way that there will be something that, positive that comes out? It's just, it's unbearable. And what's happening for us right now. One thing I want to say before I get into that, though, is that when people go through something together, whether it's the guys coming back from the services, that group remains very solid. The Sandy Hook people remained very solid. They got it. They were all in it together. What we have right now, we're all in it. So we understand it. And there is safety in that. There's a sense of comfort as well. When you lose that person, and whoever they are, even if they were an acquaintance, it still hits hard. And I found that this has been really helpful. When you do a celebration, a tribute, who were they? When people go around and you start collecting quotes, the person said, now we start to laugh about it. We need to make it light. What was their message? Who were they? Who were they to us? You may discover when you have a group together in whatever type of service that we have to do right now is make it uplifting, where it's about who they were and what they left with you. Because everybody we lose, we're missing pieces, parts of them, their qualities. But you can hold on to that. And when you hold on to that, you believe in that. So just for New York City alone, these are, and I'm sure everyone's aware of, the different supports that are available to everyone. A lot of times people don't want to use them because they're afraid that if they have the symptoms, they don't want to say anything. And I think that's become a problem too. And, there's that denial and avoidance that happens there that can spread things. So coping, releasing, like I said before, and I think all of us together have to do this. The connection, communicate with a friend, talk, whatever that is. Face-to-face is very good. As we all said before, it's a bit of a struggle, but we're going to eventually become good at this. We're going to understand it. We're going to know how to do this the right way. Many of the individuals, end up showing me. They're very, very good as well. The connection, doing things that you haven't done before. People are starting to discover, hey, maybe they like making bracelets. They become more organized. They get more control over, their life. And most importantly, doing what gives you peace. A couple things about some of my guys that are working. Interestingly enough, I end up calling them. They're busy. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just catching up on, a series that I wasn't able to watch when I was working. And that's why I really want to have this work group so that people, everyone can give a pointer as far as how they're dealing and how they're coping. So when you lose that person, it becomes a way to honor them, talking about their expressions, characteristics. And, a lot of people like to write, and that's where you see the emotion come out. So I encourage groups getting together to do that. Keep a journal, carry something that they had, write a poem, talk about their expressions, characteristics, all of those things. So personally, last year, and this is where, you talk about different triggers and things, I lost my mother. She was 90 years old. She actually was in this field until she was 80. She worked at Southbury Training School. So she brought me into this field and she was on a ventilator at the end, and we had to make a very, very tough decision with her. So when I hear ventilators, it, can trigger something. As I was doing this presentation, I found this. My brother has no idea. We have a very small family. We don't know where this came from. And this is the motto of my mother. When the world says give up, hope whispers. Try it one more time. I kept the connection with her, whether she could hear or not hear. I would drive from New York to Connecticut just to give her that glimmer of hope. And a couple times she looked up at me on the ventilator and said, "This is a tough one." And that's why I'm encouraging people when we have our individuals, on a ventilator, let's do something for them. Let's get a tape. They have to hear our voice. When you're motivated and when you give up, you give up. But if there is hope and there is something that's familiar and you hear those familiar voices, so many of our guys haven't had people in their lives that really genuinely cared about them. And, you know, one person we have right now, he's on a ventilator, and his family became models. And these people, they went to his parties. They did all of these things. I want to and trying to get a way that he can just know that that person's thinking about him. So we have a chat line. You know, you want to talk, you want to cry, you want to tell us a story. Again, we're all in it. We're all in it together. So that's, you know, what we're offering as well. And then we have a tribute to this woman that we lost. And what I said was, I actually didn't personally know her, but her personality, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you can just see. And those are the words they use to describe her. Vivacious, kind, and beautiful. So that's what we're offering now. I would love to share this with other people if this could be helpful in any way. And that's, you know, that's where I am also doing an anxiety group and so many different things. We're trying to figure out what people are looking for. So, you know, thank you guys for taking the time to listen. I appreciate it.